A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal. Something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. and we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Well, you're absolutely right, Samantha. And indeed, Donald Trump was elected on this promise to end, as you put it, forever wars. He was critical of one of his Republican presidential
predecessors. Interesting. So here we are again. Wasn't so long ago, it seems like
doing this. And there is every possibility, as we heard from Jeremy just now, that this could be a prolonged conflict. We don't know what sort of reaction, what sort of response there will be from Iran to all this. So it is a political gamble for Donald Trump, but he has clearly been losing patience with the Iranians in recent weeks and months as these negotiations have failed to reach agreement on the basically a ban on nuclear weapons, the development of nuclear weapons in Iran. But as recently as last night in Corpus Christi,
you're doing
Texas,
this
Donald
for
Trump
Israel, and Israel laughs how
he had,
stupid.
as he put it,
And there's a law that Congress needs to approve a war since when our Congress has the power to stop. Yeah, essentially the president can carry out actions like this for, I believe it's 30 days before he needs Congress to approve it. I don't know, man. I know when Venezuela happened, I was like, oh man, what are we doing? This is a nightmare. What are we doing? And it seems like
some sort of
okay.
But now, of course,
I don't know.
events have turned in a different direction.
Iran is riding in the street and storming the Supreme Leader's palace. Hopefully so. There was a message put out. Let's see here if I can find this thing real quick. There was a message put out by some Iranian leader. I was watching it when I was first getting up. Dang it, did I not share it? Basically telling the Iranian people just to relax, stay where, not relax, but stay where you're at, and I'll give you the word when it's time to get out into the streets.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating.
There's explosions in Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, which tells me that
for 47 years the Iranian regime
Iran is firing back at our bases.
And that it waged
Expect
an
American
campaign of
casualties.
bloodshed and mass murder.
This is going to be a problem for a lot of people, obviously.
Do you get the sense that going back to 1979, and this is a period of time that Donald Trump will remember the Iranian Revolution and the taking of hostages in the US embassy, that he wants to be the president to end this regime? The Iranian issue, the Iranian regime has dogged American presidents ever since then.
It has. And of course, Barack Obama really made very little progress as far as
because he paid them
to the negotiating table in this regard.
What some people will do to avoid the Jeffrey Epstein files.
He has to take action that his predecessors have been unwilling to take for a variety of different reasons. But it is, of course, a massive gamble.
All right, so we usually go on at 6, so I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here. I just wanted to get myself caught up on the news. I figured we could do that together.
Be the case.
That seems to be, I don't know about MAGA. It's more of an American thing, isn't it?
In a sense, some would argue playing with fire with his decision.
Yes, they're attacking the regime. It's a regime thing. They're trying to, they call them decapitation strikes. So they're trying to take out the heads of the government so that the people can rise up. As long as we,
David, thank you very much.
I don't like it, but as long as we get out of there and let them take their own country back, that's the only answer that we have at this point. You can't do anything else that's going to be successful. They've tried it before.
Around the UAE, in Qatar, bring us up to date on that.
Yes, we heard a number of explosions here in Doha and got some warnings on our mobile phones saying that the citizens should stay away from military installations and stay indoors. We also have reports quoting Qatari officials saying that they have intercepted a number of Iranian missiles fired at the country, and the target is the Al Udeid Air Base. This is the Americans' largest military base in the region. It's the headquarters for the Central Command, and it was targeted in June during the 12-day war by the Iranians, but now only after they telegraphed it for a while. And
just like in Venezuela, Afghanistan, and Vietnam all went so well. Well, Vietnam went well. I mean, not Vietnam. Sorry.
This conflict started now.
Venezuela. That's a different place.
Act quickly, and that they would fire missiles not only at Israel, but at the U.S. assets in the region. And there are 13 U.S. bases in the region, in the United Arab Emirates, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, and in other places, along with about 40,000 troops. And we have been getting reports from around the region. In Bahrain, for example, the Bahrainis announced that a missile had hit the U.S. naval base there. This is the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. In United Arab Emirates, we've just got a word from the
I mean, if you really think this is about deflecting from the Epstein files, and you're just listening to the narratives, that's all.
From the Iranians, there's been the sound of explosions heard there as well in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and also a report that explosions were heard in Kuwait as well. So the Iranians do seem to be making good on their promise to make sure that they unleash the missiles that they have on those who are attacking them.
Barbara, to what extent will Donald Trump have consulted with those Arab leaders, with those Middle Eastern leaders before these strikes? Because he does have close relations, and of course he has all these bases in these countries, as you've just said.
It's a tricky one. Let me go wake up my son real quick. I'll be right back.
His administration consulted extensively with them, and they were also very proactive in the 2 months leading up to this, trying to mediate a diplomatic solution to this crisis that Mr. Trump had essentially started, given that he had promised to intervene on behalf of protesters and then said, oh, no, we're going to do a nuclear deal now, and if you don't agree to our terms, we'll attack you. So they had been very active in trying to prevent that from leading to a military confrontation, very worried about the consequences for the region, knowing that Iran would attack more broadly this time. But also, this is a region that depends on oil and gas. And even if the oil supply is disrupted, that's a problem. But what if Iran would directly target oil and gas facilities? What will happen if the Iranian regime is the target of the strikes, which it turns out is the case? What would come next? Would it be something that would increase stability or decrease stability? And they had been looking at those examples of Iraq and Syria on their doorsteps. So they have been very active. And you're right, this administration has close ties with Arab leaders. You have not just political connections, but investment connections as well. And I think what's very clear in terms of what's happening now is that their advice is not the advice that Mr. Trump took. He took the advice of the Israelis.
Barbara, thank you. You're watching BBC News.
Let's bring you back in just from your perspective, your initial thoughts as well, and your assessment on the situation and what we have heard so far.
Well, I think Jonathan is exactly right. I mean, I think this is historic in its proportions, and I think it's unifying and it resonates exactly with the Iranian public, as he so eloquently described. I think this is the moment that the Iranian people have been waiting for, and really, I think, represents the response to the longest and most continuous threat to the American people posed in half a century by this regime, as well as to our allies abroad, in Europe and in the region most particularly. And so I think the consequence, the magnitude of what we're seeing can't be overstated. And I think that this is something that, again, may be what rallies others, not just in the country, but beyond its borders, slowly and increasingly to join as they realize and join the momentum to see the impact it has regionally and globally.
Yeah, to that point, Jonathan, I mean, you heard Jacob use the magnitude. You heard Lindsey Graham talking about a 1,000-year change. You used the word historic nature. Are we truly looking at a fundamental reshifting of the entire Middle East?
It would realistically go even beyond the Middle East. This is a development that can transform the entire world.
I figured I'd catch up with the news
and that
together.
is simply because the Islamic Republic's malign footprints continues to be seen throughout really the entire world. So on the European front, it is because of the Islamic Republic that Russia was able to sustain its war against Ukraine. When you look at Venezuela, of course, it's through Iran's Hezbollah that a lot of course, drug trafficking and money laundering operations take place. You're talking about a regime that sought to assassinate the president on U.S. soil, wanted to abduct, of course, Americans. Their extensive terror network reaches throughout Western and Eastern Europe. And of course, we see their footprints in Africa as well of sending illicit different weaponry, of course, defying the arms embargo. So it is really historic. And if you look at specifically the Middle East, if you look at U.S. involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, part of the reason that it was so hard for us to achieve the objectives that we originally had in mind was because of the Islamic Republic. They were funding both Al-Qaeda and, more importantly, different Shia groups in Iraq that were killing U.S. personnel.
Yeah,
similar situation in Afghanistan, that they were arming the Taliban.
Yes, Ron. Amen to that.
So should this regime fall, really, of course, we're going to
There's going to be
very
some
likely
casualties.
see a situation where we may have secured an ally in a very turbulent region solely because of the president's signaling and effective communication to the Iranian people. I really cannot stress this enough as to how well received this is by about 90 million Iranians that have been subjected to this brutal Islamist regime. You know, having grown up there, having been involved in protest waves, it was always about the help that never arrived. But the key there was that Iranians demonstrated their willingness to put their lives on the line, and the president saw that and addressed it accordingly. We yet to see exactly how this movement is going to transition towards more of a widespread movement led by the Crown Prince and aided by America.
Yeah, the Crown Prince has also released a statement as well, confirming and supporting the strikes on Iran and also urging the Iranians as well to continue their protests as they try and overturn and basically get back their country, as the president said.
I think
but the key word that you mentioned there, Jonathan.
The point here is, like, I'm seeing a lot of this kind of comments, but I think the Iran's always stupid to fight in. It's just mountains, deserts, and caves. I think it's They're just going for the decapitation strikes. So they're just trying to kill off the leadership. Apparently, I mean, we'll see what happens. I was really negative about Venezuela, and then that turned out just,
And Lebanon's
so we'll see.
as well is also making a statement for all parties to prioritize the welfare of their countries and their citizens. Those remarks tend to...
What do we got here?
On the streets of Iran. But this is at the moment a joint operation of the US and Israel. Whether the Iranian regime falls depends on whether a third belligerent enters the picture, and that's the Iranian people. President Trump telling them, you have to rise up, cast off the regime. This is your last chance. If you don't do it now, it may not come back for generations. And I'm sure that if the Iranian people seize this moment and try to capture regime facilities, American and Israeli air power will be there to support them as they try to take their country back. President Trump promised help is on its way. It came a bit too late. It's finally here.
And this is from our buddy over at Fox News, Trey Yingst, who joins us quite a bit to talk about all of this. He says President Trump describes the operation against Iran as, quote, massive and ongoing. So I wanted to ask you, because you and I have discussed in the past the other terror groups there, the Houthis, Hezbollah over in Lebanon. Do you think they're going to step in and play a role in all of this? Have we already seen anything kind of play out with them?
The Iranian proxy armies have been massively degraded in recent years. This is not what the Iranian regime was expecting. It thought it could build nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. And at the moment of truth, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis would rain hellfire on Israel and American targets. They can't do that because Israel has been cutting them down to size for the last 2 years and not letting them bring their heads up for air. Now, they may try to come in. Israel is expecting that Hezbollah could support Iran. I've seen a report that the Houthis are saying they're willing to lend support to Iran, but they are massively weakened from where they were.
Most of us who have been around a little while are a bit nervous about the Middle East. It always seems to be a place that
the Iranian regime would
presidencies go to die.
With the exception of those severely degraded terrorist groups, the Iranian regime is on its own.
Are you shocked or surprised in any way that there were no leaks about this? Again, we've been talking for days, weeks about the potential for some kind of strike against Iran by the U.S., Israel, maybe both of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, it's a bit different than what Obama did. He sent pallets of cash. Please, let's be friends. Please, be nice to us, please.
There were no leaks.
I don't know. I think President Trump was pretty...
I have a feeling this is going to end up well. I just do. It seems like it will. I don't know. I know that I've gone into these situations with Trump before, and I've been like, oh, man, this is going to be this is no good. Because before, with other presidents, it was no good. But he's so different. I don't know. I just...
President Trump is a man who is a man of his word. This is what he said would happen. There would be consequences. He gave the Iranian regime time. He said 10 to 15 days. This is all within President Trump's own timeline. Yeah. And I think the Iranian regime, once again, is learning the hard way that it did not take President Trump seriously and did not take the diplomatic off-ramp when it had the chance.
As far as Israeli civilians right now, as we mentioned a bit earlier here when we first started talking, they are in shelters. They have been told right now that they can leave those shelters for the time being. But I have to imagine that the day is pretty much, and maybe the next several days and weeks, going to be a lot of running to those shelters and kind of taking cover at different times, whether we're talking about during the day or in the middle of the night.
Israelis are expecting sleepless nights ahead when we hear sirens telling us, run now. There are several places you can seek shelter. Every new home in Israel built since 1990 must have its own bomb shelter. Literally every single apartment in the last 30 years has a room of reinforced concrete that is intended precisely for these attacks. If you don't have one, you can run down to your building's bomb shelter. And if your building doesn't have a bomb shelter, there are public bomb shelters all across the country. Now, look, it's easy for me, a healthy young man, to run down several flights of stairs. Imagine doing it if you have to grab children out of their beds in the middle of the night. Imagine doing it if you're in a wheelchair or you are elderly and use a walking stick. Imagine doing it if you have other illness or disability. This is not an easy situation to run in and out of shelter. It is extremely stressful, especially for families and for the elderly. It's something that Israelis have unfortunately become accustomed to, but this cannot become our new normal. And part of the reason that Israel is so keen to deal with the Iranian threat is so that it cannot continue to threaten us and force us into a reality where every few months Israelis have to run into the bomb shelters. And so Israel is relieved the United States understands the threat that the Iranian regime poses to the whole world, not just the Middle East, not just American interests, but the whole world, and is determined to put an end to it right now.
I think it's clearly going to be airstrikes.
Before I let you go, essentially the Iranian people, talking about civilians there, appear to want the Iranian regime gone. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, they want him out.
Came on at
how are they likely to come together to maybe make that happen
with you guys
and help the U.S. and Israel?
The Iranian people despise the Iranian regime. It has brutally oppressed them for nearly 50 years, slaughtered tens of thousands of people in the streets. Just weeks ago, when they rose up to claim their freedom, we've seen videos of people in Tehran cheering the American and Israeli strikes because they hate the regime. And so this is a war of liberation. This is a war to give the Iranian people a chance to take the future into their hands.
It always sounds
and
like that in the
President Trump
beginning.
is urging them to seize government facilities, to siege, to claim institutions, to take them away from the regime, so that one day they can be handed over to a peaceful, democratic Iranian government, and not the regime that will impoverish them in order to bring death to Israel and death to America.
Eylon Levy, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us here. Seth. Again, all of that is going to be covered here on Live Now from Fox as we see these different sirens that are sounding over across Israel. Right now, I want to take a live look over Tel Aviv at this hour. Again, we have so many different shots that are coming into our newsroom. Actually, this is once again some of the video that we were just showing you. It's kind of popping up on your screen, but this is a live look over Jerusalem. Now, if you did not hear that video from President Trump,
major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran,
it's about the
holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death.
That's pretty slick.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran,
I
say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
All right, that was President Trump releasing that.
Interesting.
Earlier on, just a few hours ago. Now, again, Axios reporting here that.
Yeah, Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra, gain of function research, nothing to do with Iran. A bunch of lies. Governments do lie.
The White House will likely send out an alert with that time in a matter of.
Yeah, we have to accept it. I guess we're going to have some casualties. I don't like that.
We are going to bring that to you in full here,
commercial free. Trump's going to speak here shortly.
It is now 5:31 on the East.
All right, so Fox. So I guess Trump's going to come out and talk again. We may have casualties. Yes, we may have casualties because of the bombing, Iran bombing back. I think that I don't see us putting boots on the ground. I think it's going to be all planes and just trying to knock out their leadership, which is what he's saying. Hopefully that's what's going to happen. Hopefully these are real, true decapitation strikes where they go in, cut the head off the snake, and get the hell out of there. Let the people there build their country back up. No nation building. No nation building.
This up on your screen from our buddy Trey Yingst. He says, breaking, Iran's supreme leader and president were targeted, as well as those responsible for commanding the mass murder of Iranian protesters. Battle damage assessments will come out later. A senior Israeli official telling Fox News about that. Again, if you are just joining us, I want to get to some of the latest information that we do have as we follow the latest on Operation Epic Fury, as the U.S. and Israel launch that joint military campaign against Iran. Again, we are awaiting those comments here from President Trump as the strikes happened just hours ago overnight. We heard in that 8-minute statement from President Trump about the mission itself he posted on Truth Social. And we learned via Axios here, Trump expected to address the nation again Saturday morning. In addition to that video that was released overnight, Barack Ravid there with Axios reporting all of that. Now, sirens have been sounding this morning across Israel, and that's why we've been showing you just some of the images that are coming in. This is actually a live look over Haifa at this hour. I want to lift up the audio just to see if we can hear anything as those sirens continue to blare. All right, so in the background right now, you're just hearing people kind of talk, as we heard from Eylon Levy a bit earlier on this morning. He is the former Israeli government spokesperson there.
It feels like Vietnam, but all NATO forces will be used, and this means much of Europe will he thank us this time around?
Likely they will have to go back to those shelters several times.
I'm not sure we need
these alerts.
Trump said those servers suck.
Now, Iran's foreign minister
that was debunked. It was debunked like years ago.
In response to the renewed military aggression, the quote here, he says, quote,
years.
The time has come to defend the homeland and confront the enemy's military assault, just as we were prepared for.
Yeah, there's been attacks back, I believe, at some of the military bases nearby.
At all times. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will decisively respond to the aggressors with full authority, end quote. The U.S. Embassy in Doha, Qatar, has implemented a shelter-in-place order for all of its personnel, and the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, has closed its airspace as Israel and the U.S. conduct those strikes. We're also hearing from officials in Bahrain that the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet has been targeted by a missile attack. And just yesterday, We know Secretary of State Marco Rubio called on Americans in Iran to evacuate
Yeah.
that area.
They should have known it was coming. They did that yesterday. And Huckabee told the people in Israel, American workers in Israel, to leave.
Are coming in fast. Now, we have been checking with several different officials here, and we do have an expert that will join us, a former Israel Defense
They bombed their own high-end community trying to strike an American base. That's true.
Here on your screen, so we can bring that to you as we get it. The latest, though, coming in, Qatar Airways temporarily suspending its flights here. Qatar Airways says it temporarily suspended flights at its Doha hub because of the closure of the Gulf nation's airspace. The airline says it's working with local authorities to support passengers affected by the stoppage, and that it expects
this is the
once flights eventually
this is the current look of the airspace over Iran. You'll notice all this is there's Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, there's Israel there. All this is open.
For international law. He wrote, quote, "Violence only brings chaos. De-escalation and dialogue are the path to peace and stability." He said all of Spain's embassies in the region still operational for its citizens. And within hours of that joint U.S. and Israeli strike on Iran, Ali Vaez, who directs the Iran project at the International Crisis Group, warned that the war could likely escalate. Vaez on social media stressing that Iran had been preparing for the conflict and that wider war could break out across the Middle East. He also stressed that the war could lead to higher energy costs, which would undercut one of Trump's domestic political messages that gas prices have been lower since his return to the White House. This could change all of that.
Stupid
Vaez
camera.
also saying, quote, "Iran sits along the Strait of do is head out to some of the other live images that we have over Israel at this hour as we lift up the audio to listen in and potentially see if we can hear anything over Jerusalem.
Nope, nothing over. That's the same camera angle on 3 different. That's interesting. There's a couple different news stations that have that same camera up. I gotta get this camera working again. I'm messing with my camera here.
At the skyline of the city, as we see on your screen there.
Yeah, we are also hearing reports of a direct strike on a U.S. base in Bahrain as well, and that strike you mentioned in Abu Dhabi. Several booms just heard again, reiterating renewed booms heard in Doha as well, and several new explosions in Abu Dhabi near the city's main airport as well. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, also hearing of explosions there too as well. But we're going to bring Jonathan. Do we still have you here with us as well? All right. Jonathan and Jacob are both still with us as we continue our coverage here and our analysis. Jacob, the retaliation from Iran, we're hearing of, targets throughout the Middle East on U.S. assets. What do you say will be the next steps from the United States if Iran is successful on any of its attacks?
Well, I think this is obviously a scenario that the United States and its partners in the region have been planning, have been trying to take precautions around. You've seen the notices for evacuations of staff at embassies and bases throughout the region and the world. And so I think this is something that we have been looking at and planning. I think the response, and the military engagement will continue with that in mind. I think
the camera is actually one of the best out there. I just keep having these software
by the United States
glitches, but
Israel as well.
Thank you.
On not just the actual apparatus and the tools of terror, the launchers, the missiles, but the regime leaders itself, the leadership of the military in particular, and the IRGC, and then of course the mid to high level, all the different officials there in that apparatus that are doing all this. And so I think you'll see more of that, and I think that has obviously been in the works, as this operation, to my mind, has likely been in the works and planning for many years now. And so all of these scenarios, to some degree, I suspect were probably anticipated of the ways in which Iran would respond. So I think those precautions will continue, and the actions by the United States and partners as well.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Jennifer, good morning. The operation has began, and you have some insight on what may have been some of the initial targeting.
That's right, Griff. But before I get to those initial targets, we can confirm that there were sirens not only in Bahrain, but also Qatar. That is significant because it suggests incoming missiles into both of those countries where the U.S. military has key bases. In Bahrain, of course, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. We are hearing reports that there is smoke rising on the horizon in the vicinity of that base.
Days, if not weeks. He said the goal here is the elimination of the Ayatollah. The operation, he says, will be massive in scope, and its goal is the elimination of the Iranian regime. He just told the Wall Street Journal as well. He goes on to say, it has been a dream of mine for so long that the Ayatollah's murderous regime will be replaced by the people who seek a better life for themselves and their country. The question is, how does that exactly happen? Can that be achieved through military power and through the Iranian people rising up themselves? It is widely thought that regime change in Iran far more complicated than in Venezuela, Peter, and that speaks to your point about this debate of congressional approval. The calls for congressional approval will grow louder in the coming hours, I can tell you. And also, I think the debate within the president's own party, does this fit within that American?
We bounce all around. We're on NBC
there are
now.
going to be some skeptics, some of the president's own supporters, undoubtedly, who have some real concerns about this. Will this cost American lives, Peter?
You know, Kristen, it's striking as we watch what's taking place right now in that region. It was barely, not even 2 months ago, that the U.S. ultimately participated in the change of regime in Venezuela. I know you were there speaking to Delcy Rodriguez, who is the interim president in that country, the removal of Nicolas Maduro and what was that stunning American effort there that happened overnight, was able to remove him, bring him back to the United States, where he is now facing justice. And now, less than 2 months later, the U.S. is looking to try to do the same thing in a much more complex region, not Venezuela, but in Iran, with an Ayatollah who has been in place there for decades here. This is going to raise some real challenges that I'm sure we're going to hear from American lawmakers, some of the president's fiercest critics, about what he views as a wide, sustained effort. And to the point of your conversation with Lindsey Graham, this isn't a matter of hours, but days and likely weeks, and ultimately could require boots on the ground in some form to help support an effort to overtake the Ayatollah, for there to be a complete regime change in that region. This is a much, much bigger effort than the one we witnessed only a matter of weeks ago.
And Peter, we saw the debate play out in the weeks leading up to this. You heard Vice President J.D. Vance, for example, in an interview say, look, there's not going to be a prolonged military effort.
They're out there trying to research.
And yet, President Trump himself seemed to contradict that statement on Friday when he told reporters, basically, you can never guarantee that there won't be a prolonged military effort. That's everything that President Trump campaigned against, Peter, going all the way back to 2016, by the way. But to your point about congressional oversight, there's already a bipartisan bill that is being proposed that would require the administration to seek congressional approval before any sustained conflict in the Middle East Is that something that more lawmakers will now support in the wake of these attacks
those who don't know,
against Iran that we are seeing play out now?
In the two chats, I have two live streams on YouTube going on. One's a vertical and one's a horizontal. The horizontal seems to be where the more mature people hang out, and then the vertical seems to be where we, you get a little bit more troll action.
They acknowledge just how complicated regime change will be. Now, look, they say, yes, you can do it without putting boots on the ground, but how exactly does that happen, Peter? What are the mechanics of that? Their hope, as you heard the president lay out, is that the Iranian people will rise up. But that is risky and challenging in and of itself.
Kristen Welker is the moderator of Meet the Press. She's going to have a full plate on Sunday as we hear from lawmakers.
Let's see what we got over here. Let's see what Sky News is reporting.
Against that being repeated in the near future.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. And well, it's often said that truth is the first victim in war, but it is worth repeating what is being said. And the Iranians are saying that their army chief,
didn't they try to make a peace treaty?
Safe.
That's the point, right?
Actively commanding the armed forces. The Revolutionary Guard Corps says Tehran's retaliation will continue relentlessly until the enemy is decisively defeated. Let's speak to the political
analyst. They can't possibly
and
think they can beat us, right?
Middle East advisor at the U.S. Department of Defense, Jasmine El Gamal. Good morning. And why this and why now, do you think?
Good morning, Mark. Well, look, that's a really good question, and the answer is not clear, because what we have here are two conflicting accounts of the hours and days and the context leading up to these attacks. The U.S. and Israeli sources have been saying that they've been unhappy with the progress in the nuclear talks and that they don't see the outlines of a deal happening. The Omani foreign minister, on the other hand, Oman, as you know, was the key mediator in these talks, both this time and last year, was just on a U.S. program, Face the Nation. And the Omanis don't do a lot of interviews like this. They're generally behind the scenes.
Trump's supposed to come on speaking.
He said explicitly that he thought that there had been significant progress made in the talks and that Iran was willing to agree to zero enrichment and to open up its nuclear sites for verification. So completely conflicting accounts of what led to this moment. So in some ways, it is a surprise. Of course, we were expecting this as an option because before the 12-day war last year, the Iranians and the Americans were also in the middle of negotiations. So we knew that that wasn't entirely off the table. But to see the U.S. president go into this with a claim, if you heard his remarks earlier, that the U.S. wanted to act because there was an imminent threat from the Iranians. Again, there was no such imminent threat reported or verified. The Iranians seemed to be committed to continuing negotiations. And so I think President Trump also domestically is going to have a lot to answer for in terms of why he started this at this particular time, Mark.
Yeah, and he had a range of options presented to him, we're told, by by the Pentagon, by the military, and clearly he's gone for, one of the more dramatic ones.
Well, that part is not surprising. The scope of the attack, once he decided to attack, that's the part that was more surprising, the timing of the attack. But the scale of the attack is not so surprising. I was saying last week in media appearances that this actually is the smart thing to do from a U.S. perspective, because what you would want to do is minimize to the extent possible Iran's proactive and reactive defensive capabilities. So making sure that they can't retaliate.
It looks like this is a stream right from President attack. I'm not sure where this is. This is. Well, that's annoying. The news people in the media suck by RNC. I like the normie chat. It's much more intelligent. Yeah, typically when I go on, I was doing the morning ones where I was just the vertical, and then I switched over and started doing both. And that's what it seems to be. It seems to be the grown-ups go to the horizontal version where there's less people, and then the people that stumble in, like typically the trolls, whatever, they'll go to the vertical one. There was some video of them intercepting some missiles earlier. Yeah, I have to agree with that. There is no way to make peace with Iran. Diplomacy has been granted for years. Iran finally found out. Obama gave him, what, 6 pallets of cash? 6 pallets was like $6 billion or something like that. It's crazy. On an airstrip in the middle of the night. We keep having this weird noise. That was the dumbest question ever. What do you mean? Why now? We've tried to have peace agreements. They denied every attempt. We told them what was going to happen, but they refused to believe it. Yep. Russia left Iran a warship in their port. So it's going to be a target. Oh, that's going to be. I have to find some. Let me see if I can't find that comments from the Iranian people. I guess breaking. I don't know who this is. Ghulam head of the judiciary in Iran was eliminated. He gave the death sentence to thousands of protesters. Let's turn it down a little bit. Needs to be a repeat now.
These are basically Iranian missiles that have fallen into countries that have helped, that were fired at U.S. Naval bases or U.S. bases in the Middle East. But there's absolutely nothing coming in from Iran, because Iran has shut down internet. And then you have Iran also playing, the cyber, the warfare, information warfare game. There is Iranian state-run media, which has just claimed that 5 students have been killed at a girls' school in southern Iran in Israel-US strike. So this is the first time that they have admitted to casualties, but they claim that students have been killed. But some sections of Iranian media earlier claimed that thousands perhaps were injured or killed in the strikes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. I think we have some graphics, Niranjan. You can help people understand the geography, the places that have been hit, the cities, conflict zone.
Abhishek, basically, we don't have any videos that have come in. No videos outside of Tehran. In fact, we had one video that came in from Isfahan earlier this morning. But these are the cities, regions in Iran that have been hit by the joint America-Israel strike. You saw the barrage of missiles that were fired on Israel. Tomahawk missiles, essentially Tomahawk missiles that were fired towards Iran across different cities: Tabriz, Karaj, Tehran, Kermanshah, Qom, Khorramabad, Lorestan, Isfahan, Bushehr. We just had visuals coming from about 2 cities. 2 of the cities where you could see damage.
I don't think so, Patty.
When the strikes happened, internet
outside of a
on.
few
So
just,
that is
you
how
know,
you saw the pictures of
flame-ups.
the strike on what they call the leader's house, Ayatollah Khamenei's house, and also the presidential palace, and also from Isfahan. That's initially after the strikes, but minutes after the attack, when the video started coming out, Iran shut down its internet, shut down phone lines, and you had absolutely nothing coming back, nothing, coming out in the media. So that's the point that I wanted to make, Abhishek, as we get in more videos also from different parts of the Middle East.
Well, absolutely.
Israel claims Iranian nuke program had killed.
Of Iran, because they have shut down the internet. That's a controlled regime, obviously, and that's one reason why a lot of people believe that the Iranian regime is suppressive, repressive, and that's why it should go. And the Americans, of course, harping on that fact. But the fact that the Iranians have also hit back this time early on, Miss Claire, if you are still there, is evidence of the fact that maybe just as the Americans were prepared better this time, even the Iranians were so.
Are the Iranians prepared for this attack? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
I don't think they were. I mean, I think that, there's been a lot of speculation that there could be an attack, that the naval buildup near the area was very clear. So, Iran probably prepared for something as best that they could, but the attack was a surprise. It was kept very well under wraps, I think, by our administration and by the Israelis as well. And so I don't think that they were prepared, and they couldn't be prepared because of the damages that they suffered in the 12-day war as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Rakshita, I believe we have more pictures coming in. We have more graphics coming in. We have more videos coming in. Remember?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Before that, we have to step into a very, very short break. Abhishek will be right back with minute-by-minute developments, updates coming in from West Asia and the reactions from across the globe as the situation continues to escalate in West Asia. Viewers, we'll be right back. This very short break with.
Trump handed over Afghanistan to the Taliban, and MAGA thinks Trump wants to set Iran. Do you really think that? Trump handed over Afghanistan to the Taliban. Okay.
Wrong. Ya Allah! Ya Allah! Ya Allah! Ya
I had a bunch of stuff to talk about this morning. I thought Trump was aware. I wanted to talk about Anthropic. I don't think anyone cares right now.
ضربوا البحرين يا شباب ضربوا القاعدة الأمريكية لإيران ضربتهم.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Congress doesn't have to approve. Congress only has to approve after 30 days. What are they playing?
Red warning. Carbon shelter immediately. Shelter in place. Missile threat warning. Carbon shelter immediately. Shelter in place. Ya Allah!
That's what we're going to
encouraged to be more cooperative, more malleable. I have to say, having been to Iran a few times,
I've covered two of these now. I've covered two of these in the last couple of months.
So
early in the morning, we're attacking people.
And so well resourced and well funded. And I think what is also unlikely is a popular uprising rising up in the sort of chaos and turmoil that the Americans and the Israelis can now engender in Iran. Back in, I think, June last year, an Iranian film director said, I hate the Israelis for what they're doing. I hate them because they're making me support a regime that I despise. And I think that's the kind of danger here as the American attack just makes many Iranians rally around their own.
It wasn't an illegal move. It's 100% legal. 100% legal.
It is 11 o'clock. You're watching Sky News. It has been predicted for weeks, but right now it is very much underway. The United States and Israel have launched what can only be described as a massive assault on Iran. They've hit military and defensive targets across the country, and Iran has responded with a missile strike on a US Navy base in Bahrain, and explosions are still being heard this hour in places like Qatar and Abu Dhabi. The strikes began with an attack near the Iranian Supreme Leader's offices at around 6 a.m. UK time. Since then, there's been strikes right across the country, with the Israeli military saying its operations against military targets
It's
in
funny because like Obama
Western
dropped
Iran
like 30,000 bombs just in his last
This
year.
is the scene at
but
the
no one
US
said nothing.
naval base in Al Jafer in Bahrain, one of the locations
US naval base
targeted in retaliatory strikes, as you can see there. Elsewhere, the UAE says one person has been killed in Abu Dhabi after it
pray for our troops and pray for Iran. Pray for the people of Iran. The people,
missiles, and
the people are not the
has
enemy.
closed its airspace after explosions were
Yes, exactly. People of Iran begged Trump to save them. They've been begging America to do that for years.
A number of major airlines have cancelled flights.
We just kept making deals with their corrupt leadership.
Mid-air, amid the threat of what is a rapidly widening conflict. Air raid sirens are sounding across Israel this morning. This was the scene as we spoke to Adam Parsons in Jerusalem a little earlier.
That's a very, very loud intercept there. That doesn't feel as if that one is too far away. These are some of the loudest booms and interceptions that we've heard so far this morning. And Israel is a tense country right now. In fact, I'm looking there.
What was that?
There is a plume of smoke that is just rising from a scene just, well, that is not far away from us at all. The smoke that you can see rising there, we don't know what has caused that.
Sorry, Sherry.
But that is a venue down there which is used as a concert venue over the course of summer here in the heart of Jerusalem, and there is now smoke pouring out from that. That is just in the shadow of the old city of Jerusalem. That is extraordinarily near to some of the holiest sites in Christianity and Islam. We'll find out what has happened there, but that is smoke pouring out from there.
Adam Parsons a short while ago in Israel. Well,
I don't like
Trump
war.
addressed the American people in the early hours of the morning, confirming
I like
that
when our
the
soldiers
major
are at
combat
risk.
operation was underway, and he urged the Iranian people to rise up against their government. He stopped short of saying the aim was regime change, but left little doubt, really, that was...
It was a military action, which is totally
The
legal.
United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. The United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world.
How about we just watch and see what happens and let it develop, you know?
Their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and
Trump's supposed to come on this morning too, so we'll carry that live as soon as he pops on.
But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future. Lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
Man, I hope they don't. I hope they act on it.
President Trump speaking a few hours ago. He's expected, by the way, to speak again. He will address the nation, we're told, sometime in the next few hours. Statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry on the strikes on Iran. Russia demands that the situation be immediately returned to the path of political and diplomatic settlement. Certain irony to that, clearly. A short time ago, we heard from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said the attack on Iran will continue for as long as necessary.
A short while ago, Israel and the United States launched a joint campaign, Operation Lion's Roar. The objective of the operation is to put an end to the threat from the Ayatollah regime in Iran. At this time, the IDF is attacking targets of the oppressive regime, facilities of the Revolutionary Guard, along with the United States military, targeting ballistic missile sites that threaten both Israel and US forces. This operation will continue as long as necessary. In recent months, the tyrants in Iran have been plotting to rebuild their nuclear and missile capabilities and to bury them underground, where we won't be able to strike them. If we don't stop them now, they will become invulnerable. To that
Didn't we
end,
just strike their
representatives
underground
in negotiations are trying to
sites?
buy time, attempting to buy time in fruitless and deceitful negotiations with our American friends. Therefore, we have now launched Operation Lion's Roar, an action that is much more powerful than Operation Rising Lions, which was very powerful. We are doing this in full cooperation with our friends in the United States under the brave leadership of President Trump. Together with the United States, we will strike hard at the terror regime and create conditions that will allow the brave Iranian people to rid themselves of this murderous regime. Whoever lays down their weapon, including among the regime forces, will ensure their safety and secure their future. The Iranian people in all their diversity.
You know who's super happy? Lindsey Graham. He's super happy somewhere.
Abkhazians, and all other citizens of this wonderful nation. This is your opportunity to establish a new and free Iran. Take your destiny into your own hands.
We have to go make another coffee here.
Netanyahu speaking earlier. Joining me now is our correspondent.
We're going to be on a while.
Sally Lockwood, who's in the Middle East. And Sally reports just, half an hour or so ago
Seinfeld.
Of claims of a new wave
Ukraine
of
is weak.
missiles.
Ukraine not weak.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Around 40 minutes ago, I received word from a source in Abu Dhabi that more explosions were heard there. And I've also been sent videos of missiles, apparent missiles, flying overhead here where I am. In Dubai, explosions have also been heard here, as well as air raid sirens. And we've seen images of people running in the streets here in Dubai to take cover, scenes that would have been absolutely unthinkable just a few hours ago. But the UAE Defense Ministry has given an update, and it said that it successfully intercepted Iranian missiles flying over the UAE, and that the relevant authorities in the country also dealt with falling debris from that attack in an area of Abu Dhabi, which has resulted in some material damage, but also the death of an Asian national. So one death confirmed here in the UAE following that Iranian missile attack today. But of course, it's not just the UAE that has been targeted. Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan have all reported missiles from Iran aimed at their countries that they've successfully shot down today. Now, something we're watching quite closely is the situation in Bahrain. America has a huge naval presence in Bahrain. It's absolutely critical to US sea.
It says Iranian students thanking Trump. Interesting. Interesting. Let's see if there's any new video. Let's see here. Any new video? Any new video? Unconfirmed reports are emerging that an initial Israeli strike targeted an underground command and control facility believed to be hosting senior Iranian leadership, including the president. Let's see here.
Regime will make sure that he is going to be safe. This is your opportunity to Zader.
Sister source. So we'll do that. Our breaking news coverage continues after this.
Short break. Short break. Let's see. Let's see. Breaking unconfirmed reports emerge of senior Iranian leadership casualties. Reports are circulating that high-ranking Iranian defense figures may have been killed in ongoing strikes. If confirmed, this would mark a major escalation targeting the command structure of our nation. Interesting. I mean, we'll have to see.
Were packed airliners for Qatar Airways on the tarmac, taxiing, and then turned around during taxiing.
Kind of agree with that sentiment.
As these
Why can't Israel do it themselves?
Now we're also hearing that the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has held a phone call today with his Iraqi counterpart, and he's warned that Iran will continue to defend itself, targeting U.S. military bases in the region as part of its right.
Well, we are. We're bombing Iran, but I guess we're at
war. The
war.
Iranian regime, of course, did warn of these retaliatory attacks, and we are now beginning to learn exactly what that looks like. They have been firing missiles at.
It was actually it was. It said Bush, Iraq has nuclear weapons.
It's not clear how long this could go on for.
Weapons of mass destruction. I think it was more chemical stuff, but anyway. Trump, Iran has nuclear weapons, so it's the same thing. Is that what you're saying?
People are sheltering indoors, and we're just waiting to see exactly what this means for the region. But
I hope they do. I hope the Iranian people will take this opportunity to stand up and take their country back.
We've seen that military build-up here in the last few weeks. 2 aircraft.
Yep.
Carrier groups
Iran, the 50s. The pictures look like America,
as well as a huge number of American air assets.
That's the American base in Bahrain.
This is going to turn into a weeks-long campaign. Now, a military source did tell me that the US military appears to have set up an alternative command center. It would normally have been out of Al Udeid in Qatar. I understand that provisions have been made and senior members of the military have been flown into another country, not the UAE. I won't reveal the country.
These are issues like we don't know they have a nuke, blah, blah, blah. These are issues where we don't have any control over that, right? We have to trust our leaders and our media. We don't have I can't look into Iran and see what's going on over there. So we have to trust. We just do. What are you going to do? I can't do anything from my living room.
Still waiting to see the full extent of that and exactly what that means for security here in the Middle East.
Sally, thank you very much indeed. More loud bangs heard in Abu Dhabi. That's coming in to us right now. Let's bring in our international correspondent, John Sparks, and military analyst, Sean Bell. And John, I want to speak in a moment about who is being targeted in the Iranian regime, Ayatollah Khamenei, and clearly, I mean, that's been acknowledged. But just first of all, you know, deep breath, big picture. This is a huge and significant assault on Iran.
It is, and I think most of us were expecting that the talks have been going on. If you remember last year, I think there were 5 or 6 rounds of talks. They didn't go anywhere, and eventually Midnight Hammer. I think we've just done the 3rd round of talks. There was some, right, let's have a short, sharp shock, demonstrate that America is serious about this and carry on talking. One of the reasons why what's actually happened, which looks well beyond that, is very worrying, is we used to war game some of these options, and you'd always look at what's the most likely course of action and what's the most dangerous. The most dangerous for Iran is if they feel an existential threat to their existence and they press the button and throw everything at America. And Trump's words around this were not ambiguous at all. It was regime change. And the worry is that you talk about all those military bases, those countries, there's 1, maybe 2 missile systems, Patriot and THAAD, that can actually take out ballistic missiles. I'm afraid Iran has orders of magnitude more missiles than America has defensive missiles. So if Iran just keeps firing these things, they will get through. And you will remember, obviously, with giving some of these to Ukraine, there's also some of these deployed around the world, that there are limited supplies. You can't go down to Walmart and get them. So I think there's a real issue here about does Iran need an off-ramp to here? Or actually, maybe America needs an off-ramp to this. It's really worrying where we are.
That's interesting, given, I mean, despite that incredible build-up that we've seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. America is the military superpower here.
We have to understand, like,
1,000 people.
You know, we don't know if they have nukes. They have nukes. I don't have nukes. We don't have the power to figure that out. We have to just kind of roll with it.
And it takes a while
Which
to get
stinks.
more out from the continental US. So as a gesture and a posture, it's
I gotta go
really
make me a
powerful.
new coffee. I'll be right
If
back.
you're now into an enduring conflict, and unless you put boots on the ground, we haven't had a rich history of success of doing regime change. And if you do it simply using air and space power, I think it'd be really interesting. So I do think President Trump's clearly decided he's going to threaten and expect Iran to capitulate. If they don't, where now?
Well, that's an interesting one, because presumably they're hoping that the 12-day war in June last year has crippled them to an extent to which, you know, which would limit their capacity to respond. I mean, they're responding today clearly, but the hope is, I guess, that their ability to respond is limited.
It is, but there's lots of different options available to Iran, aren't there? And also, let's be quite clear, politically, they know that President Trump's facing midterm elections. They also know that President Trump wants to be, I've solved 8 wars, doesn't want to start one, doesn't want to get involved. So they know that he doesn't want to get involved. And Iran, frankly, is on the day 1 of this. They probably were expecting, they had their master target list and they're firing missiles. But don't forget, there's lots of things. The Straits of Hormuz, we've talked about potentially mining that. The terror groups that they sponsor terrorism around the world, Hamas probably padlocked in. But we are hearing reports in Israel that some of the Israeli forces are moving to the northern border because they're worried about what Hezbollah will do. The Houthis may well suddenly erupt up again. There's a drone ship which the Iranians have, which has been floating quite close to the aircraft carriers. It's no offense to the aircraft carriers, but if you put 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50 drones together at one of the carriers, it's got very good close-in defense, but you can eventually overwhelm it. Probably won't sink the carrier, but it isn't half dangerous for the Americans. So there's lots of other things that Iran can do. They've had lots of times to war game this as well over the last few decades. I'm sure they've got a few more tricks up their sleeve.
Right. John, I mean, it's clear that the Israelis certainly have been saying this, are targeting Khamenei and the president as well.
Pezeshkian.
What would be the significance of taking out Ayatollah Khamenei?
Well, they're not starting gradually. This is not an incremental operation, isn't it? They have gone straight for the leadership of the Iranian Republic. We know that this has been confirmed by an Israeli official. They have gone after the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, attacking his offices in central Tehran. They've gone after Masoud Pezeshkian, who's the head of the government. Officials in Iran have said that Pezeshkian is alive and well, and a source quoted about 90 minutes ago said that Khamenei was not in Tehran and had been transferred to a secure location. But look, one thing that we do know, and I think I should add that from our American partners, NBC, they say the Israelis have targeted, or they have the split in responsibilities. They are saying the Israelis are targeting Iranian leaders, the Americans targeting Iran's ballistic and nuclear programs. We know the Israelis have got good intelligence on the Iranians, on Iranian leaders. The Israelis, it seems, are going after the leadership. We know, Sky News has confirmed from the chief of staff of a former president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. You may remember he was the president for 8 years, end of the 2000s, beginning of the 2010s. They've gone after his compound as well. He was a religious hardliner, a major backer of the nuclear program in Iran. His chief of staff says that Ahmadinejad has survived. We also know that senior figures in the Ministry of Defense have been, we can see, I think this is a video that has...
This is the Ahmadinejad.
Yeah, that has popped up. Yeah. We've confirmed this, that Ahmadinejad, his residence was attacked. You see, a large munition has caused that destruction. We also know senior members at the Ministry of Defense have been targeted. The Ministry of Justice has been targeted. State television, the IRIB, they've moved location in Tehran. Clearly, they want to stay on air. They are worrying about being taken off air. We understand that they are now telling people to leave major cities, for their own safety. But clearly, a preoccupation of the regime here is protests on the streets. And one of the things that we've seen this morning is people cheering as they see Israeli and American jets over the skies of Iran.
But just on that point that I mentioned earlier, the significance of taking out Khamenei. I mean, he is the decision maker in so many ways. Yeah. So what would taking him out mean, do you think? I mean, it wouldn't necessarily mean the end of the regime.
No, it doesn't. And I think there is a security state there of many hundreds of thousands of people. For example, in the Revolutionary Guard, there's the militia, the besieged militia. You've got more than 1 million men in the army as well. There's a huge security department of the Iranian state, and there will be people there who will be ready to step up. I think it's been instructive what we have seen over the last few months in Iran. Huge nationwide protests in that country, which the regime, when those protests got serious, when they started to threaten the existence of the regime, they crushed them. They put people on the streets, they put the militia, they put the Revolutionary Guards, they put them on the street, and they killed thousands and thousands of their own citizens. There's no limitation there shown. They killed thousands of their own people. And I think this is one of the big issues.
The answer is he doesn't.
Has framed this in the broadest possible terms. He's talking about regime
pretty clear
change.
that,
make no doubt about it. He's talking about
Iran's a bit different than Iraq was.
The methods here don't match the end goals. You're trying to achieve something through an aerial assault. Be very difficult to accomplish on the ground because of what we know the regime is prepared to do.
From their intelligence?
Sean, stay with us because I want to talk about.
Do they call you when they find things out?
All this. We know that the UK was not involved in the strikes on Iran, and Sky News understands that UK bases were not used by the US military. So Keir Starmer has been holding a Cobra meeting to discuss the situation this morning. That meeting, I understand, has now finished. Let's go live to Downing Street, our political correspondent, Amanda Acas. And Amanda, do we know what has come out of that meeting?
We don't yet have any information about exactly what was discussed in that meeting. It's clearly an event surrounded by very high security. We know that it has now finished, and normally Cobra is convened at times of national emergency in order to kind of work out the UK's response. Ministers are involved, defence officials will have been involved, and we understand now that the Prime Minister is going to be carrying out calls with UK allies in the coming hours. We have had a statement from the UK government, though, in which they say that their overriding priority is the safety of British citizens in the region. But also, interestingly, they talk about the importance of diplomacy and of any conflict not escalating across the wider region. Let me read you that statement in full. So they say Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and that is why we have continually supported efforts to reach a negotiated solution. Our immediate priority is the safety of UK nationals in the region, and we will provide them with consular assistance available 24/7. As part of our long-standing commitments to the security of our allies in the Middle East, we have a range of defensive capabilities in the region, which we have recently bolstered. We stand ready to protect our interests. We do not want to see further escalation into a wider regional conflict. Now, if you remember recently when Donald Trump issued his statement attacking the UK government over, as he put it, Diego Garcia to the Mauritians. Now, within that statement,
where are we at over here?
Time, as we saw them take to the streets over the last 2 months by the hundreds of thousands, demanding an end to this regime, demanding the end of 47 years of oppression, of lack of freedom, of being told what to do, of corruption, of mismanagement, of having their money stolen from them and used to fund terrorism and kill other people all around the world. This is a regime that has the bloods of hundreds of Americans on its hands. This is a regime that won't sleep until it can erase Israel from the map, as it claims to do, until it can kill as many Americans as it wants. And as we saw in January, until it kills as many Iranians as it feels it needs to stay in power. So I don't think anyone will shed a tear if this regime goes. And I certainly hope that this creates the conditions for Iranians to take their own freedom into their own hands and change this regime.
As far as the execution of protesters, we know that President Trump had said after the talks were kind of taking place that the execution of those protesters had been put on hold. It was not going to happen. Do we know if those executions are actually still happening there in Iran, but maybe behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's been really hard to get that information out of Iran, in part because Iran instituted an internet
these
blackout,
mornings are trying to
at least
follow
at
the
the
news.
height of its repression of the protests. And what we've been hearing from Iran since, while maybe there were not executions, there was mass slaughter of protesters in the streets, which certainly seemed to violate President Trump's red line, telling Iran not to kill anyone. And what we've heard since then is certainly that protesters have died either in prison from torture or at hospitals with claims that Iranian security forces came into hospitals to find injured protesters and then contributed to their deaths by either denying them medical care or torturing them. So not clear if there were executions per se, but there's certainly been the killing of protesters before, during, and since President Trump told Iran to stop it.
And my last question here before I let you go, wanted to ask about the timing of this, because essentially a lot of folks thought if there was a strike, it would take place maybe in the middle of the night when it's dark out, people are in their homes sleeping. But this appears to have all taken place during the daytime, at least the hours when the sun was out. Is that sending a message of any kind? Is there anything to read into that?
It might just be also a matter of intelligence. It might have been that there was a particular target that the United States and Israel wanted to make sure that they hit at the beginning of the campaign. When we saw in the 12-day war, Israel started that war.
Iran hammers Israel. Huh. Tel Aviv. It's gonna get ugly. Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Uh-oh. Can you imagine what it would be like to live in that city, even over the last couple of decades with the attacks and things like that coming in? No, they cannot. No, they cannot. The missiles coming in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So ugly. You don't seem to understand what it takes to obtain a nuclear weapon. You must. Oh, it's ugly. That's scary. Can you imagine looking up at the sky and seeing that? Man, war is ugly. Innocent people. So many innocent people die. I was going to talk about Anthropic this morning. Try to explain that whole situation, but here we are. I mean, it's heavy, man. You think about whenever those explosions happen. That's not just an explosion. I mean, people are dying. Still coming into work, right? It is scary. That's scary. Well, we are blessed to live in America, that's for sure. Say a prayer for these people out there. No matter what side they're on, it doesn't matter what side they're on. Pray for all those people over there that are under the scope of missile attacks and such. We need to pray for everybody. Both sides, or whatever you want to call it, sides or whatever. We're all God's children, all of us. This is very troubling. It's like the Iron Dome's not doing its job as well as it, but you know, what are you gonna do? Jeez. I don't say. Yeah, hopefully, someone said, I think they're just taking out the tunnels and stuff. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully that's the case. The decapitation strike. Decapitation strikes. Just get rid of the leadership and then leave and let the people handle the. We don't need to leave a police force behind. We don't need any of that.
We're here in a destruction, demolition site in the middle of Ramat Gan, a civilian area that was attacked by the Iranian regime and destroyed a lot of buildings and hurt innocent civilians who were sitting in the houses, eating their Shabbat meals, and suddenly a missile hit their house, and some of them were injured, some of them are trapped, and we are here to rescue them and take them out.
You don't like to see any of that, man.
I can tell you that we do have a number of injured, but I can't go into detail of the exact number or the exact location, as I said. What I can also tell you, though, is that the Israel Police Bomb Disposal Units are here on this site and multiple other sites. They're some of the best in the world. We're doing everything possible to ensure the safety of the public. We just ask for the public's cooperation. Do your part. Your responsibility can save your life and other lives as well.
Scary out there. Wonder when Trump's going to post to talk. I mean, I have a feeling it's going to turn into a war. We need to pray for these people. Hey, right now I'm streaming Times Now, which is apparently showing a lot of the damage on the ground. I'm kind of scrolling through to see if I can't find some more interesting video too. Let's see what Al Jazeera has to say.
Bahrain has confirmed there have been attacks inside its territory. It says the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet has been targeted by a missile attack. It's urged people to take cover in a safe area. And at least one person has been killed in Abu Dhabi. The Ministry of Defense of the United Arab Emirates says the individual was of Asian nationality. The UAE has announced the partial and temporary closure of its airspace. These are some of the latest images that appear to show missiles being intercepted in UAE skies. Now, aside from Tehran, there have been attacks in several other cities across Iran. That includes the holy city of Qom, Karaj near the capital, Isfahan in central Iran, Tabriz in the northwest, and Kermanshah and Ilam both in the west towards the border with Iraq. Qatar has announced the closure of its airspace following the attack on Iran by the US and Israel. The defense ministry says it successfully intercepted a number of missiles that targeted the country's territory. In a statement, it said the ministry affirmed that the threat was addressed immediately upon detection and in accordance with the pre-approved security plan, with all missiles being intercepted before reaching Qatari territory. The Qatari armed forces possess full capabilities and resources to safeguard the nation's security and to firmly confront any external threat. It reiterated that the security situation remains stable and fully under control. The ministry also reassures citizens and residents, as well as visitors, urging everyone to remain calm and to adhere to instructions issued by the competent security authorities. Let's bring in Ali Hashem once again, who's been with me on set all morning covering these latest developments. Ali has covered Iran extensively. I want to ask you about the Iranian response. Very interesting that Iran fired ballistic missiles towards all Gulf countries, including Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, but not Oman.
Well, according to the Iranian military, because they just issued a statement, they said they're attacking all the military bases that assisted in this attack. At least this is what they're saying.
Do we have confirmation that the military base here, Al Udeid, assisted in this attack? No information.
No information on that. But the main issue is that this is the Iranian narrative on what's happening. Qatari foreign minister said Qatar reserves its rights to retaliate, and this is the interesting point here with respect to the Gulf countries, because now there's a conflict going on, and now there's another parallel conflict happening, and this could just make the whole crisis very intertwined and very complicated in a way that this region has never ever witnessed something like this.
Indeed. Last time there was an attack on Iran in June of 2025, Iran retaliated with a strike on the Al Udeid air base here in Doha. But there seemed to have been coordination then. It wasn't really a surprise.
Not with Qatar.
Not with, well, that's not with Qatar anyway. Do you think this time it's different, that there might have been some communications between them beforehand, or has this come as a surprise, the Iranian response?
It's clear that the Iranians, prior to the attack, prior to the war,
That's interesting, if it's true.
of course, in parallel with the retaliation towards Israel. Now, in the morning, many thought that with Israel attacking Iran alongside the United
Israel attacked Iran. Thick plumes of smoke drifting across Tehran on Saturday morning as President Trump announced the start of strikes against the Iranian regime.
The United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests.
The first target was apparently aimed at Iran's supreme leader, although he was reportedly taken to a secure location.
This is not a surprise that they would start out by attacking where Khamenei resides, because what the U.S. military would go after would be command and control, and that's the ultimate command and control. It's the ultimate message against the leadership that has been so intransigent.
The attacks coming after multiple rounds of talks in Geneva between the U.S., Iran, and Oman failed to convince Iran to abandon its nuclear program. Sirens in Israel were heard and alerts went out on phones as Iran launched its own retaliatory strikes, which could go on for days, if not longer. The president called on Iran to surrender, but he also had a stark warning for the American people.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
Josh, the top Republican and Democratic lawmakers in Washington, we call them the Gang of Eight, were briefed on this mission this week. But Congress as a whole did not sign off. That's going to cause a big debate here, with several Democrats already speaking out against this decision. One is Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego, who said on X, we can support democracy in Iran without sending troops to die. Josh.
And Rebecca, that 8-minute message from President Trump that was posted overnight, we know that he's going to speak again later on this morning. We don't have a time just yet, but wanted to ask you about his message overall to the Iranian people.
Yeah, really his message to them was, hey, this is your time to rise up. Right now, he did tell them this operation, this attack is going to last several days. So right now he wants them to shelter in place in their homes. But once the bombings stop, he says this is your time to rise up. He wants them to overtake the Iranian government and hopefully usher in a new era for Iran.
And my last question here before I let you go, Rebecca, we are hearing about additional strikes and things of that nature. What can you tell us about what we know so far there?
Yeah, so one reporting that we are seeing so far, we're seeing some videos coming out of Bahrain. State media there is reporting that a service center used by the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet was targeted by a missile attack. So it is likely very few, if any, service members were there at this time. They were likely preparing that they could possibly be targeted, but we will try to get more information on if there are any reports of casualties.
All right, Rebecca Castor there over at Fox News. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here as we continue our coverage. We do have Edmund Fitton-Brown over at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies joining us right now. Edmund, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Great to be with you.
Well, first off, I want to get kind of your overall reaction to all of this. Again, we have some information that we know, some information we don't know, as we expect to learn more from President Trump a bit later on today, possible also from Israeli officials. What has stood out to you about what we know and
Trump's
what we
original statement came out in the middle of the night.
I think the first thing is to say that this was looking increasingly inevitable because the negotiations that were going on between the US and the Iranian.
Let's see what this guy has to say.
Boots on the ground and soldiers on the ground. It was the opportunity for the Iranian people.
Also, the military was
regime. Do you think that will last?
Again, the IRGC quite loyal to the regime because it's their longevity, its survival. At any moment can defect or not, but at present the power remains with the regime. And you were showing images, by the way. I will say that images are emerging from Hormuzgan, the southern tip of Iran, right across the UAE. So these explosions are being seen in the west of Iran, but also in the southern parts. But Iranians have been preparing for this day. And I will say the majority of the population in some ways have been pushed to such extremes by the Iranian regime that they were expecting and quite frankly wanting some form of intervention just because they want to see what that day after looks like.
Right. And just
they're about to see what the day after looks like.
The supreme leader, if he is taken out, if he is killed, what impact could that have? I mean, could the regime survive without him? How important is he in that decision-making process?
He's extremely important, and some have been in the past few days comparing the situation in Iran to that of Venezuela within the IRGC.
Somewhere else in the country.
And these were speculations that we were hearing during the 12-day war. You know, the complex earlier that they hit, Pastor, is a key place in Tehran. Various government offices, the president's offices there.
Our base was attacked
have been moved. And one piece of news that was interesting is you remember Mir Hossein Mousavi and his wife, opposition leaders during the 2009 Green movements. They have been under house arrest since 2011. and their residents have also been hit, but they have also been moved. So I have no doubt that we are going to hear of some major figures killed, but so far we have not had any confirmations of who those folks are.
No, well, we wait to see what happens there. We have seen footage, by the way, of Ahmadinejad's
Indeed.
compound.
Yes.
I don't care what
Tarmac.
Google thinks.
Interesting that they would go for him.
Interesting, and again, people might remember his presidency. For years, he drowned Iran's economy. He's an extremely conservative figure. And,
These are the images, I'm
yes.
told, of the compound, the
Yes,
attack on the compound. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. He's not at all a favorable, figure amongst the public, and in some ways, many attribute
Congress doesn't have
Iran's
to clear
choked
it.
economy and
It's a military
sanctions
action.
due
He
to
has 30
his,
days.
policies,
And they have to declare
so,
war
yes,
or whatever.
Indeed. Those are images near his home in Narmak in Tehran. And I will say Tehran has a population of nearly 10 million, including 16 million in the surrounding areas. So undoubtedly, as we saw during the 12-day war, we will have civilian casualties. And that's something to closely watch as all of this unfold.
Well, inevitably there will be deaths. It is extremely difficult.
I want to know when Trump's speaking. He's supposed to speak this morning.
Confirm what's going on. It's difficult to confirm numbers that are emerging from Iran. But I should just say that the state media in Iran are talking about an attack an attack that's hit a primary school in the southern Iranian town of Minab.
Yes.
And state media is saying that the death toll in that has risen to 40. But as I say, it is so difficult.
It is so difficult, yes.
Confirmation of these things.
Indeed. Mehr News is a semi-official news agency, reported that
and people can be fed, they can get health care, they can go about their daily lives. This cannot happen just from military action alone. So again, there are many, many, many blanks to be filled in by the administration, by Israel.
They're surrounded.
At this hour, but we do have overwhelming military superiority in the region. And I think this first round is definitively going to go to the United States and Israel. The question is, what happens in round two?
Jeremy, as you point out, there is no evidence of Iran building that type of warhead, but the president did make a point in his video posted overnight that Iran has been building missiles that could soon reach the American homeland. And obviously that is the concern that would be paramount for American citizens living here. Talk to us about what types of abilities Iran does have.
Dying to see him talk about it.
Well, look, Iran has been building a highly capable long-range ballistic and cruise missile fleet. They right now have intercontinental ballistic missiles that can fly and hit Israel. We've seen that in April and October of 2024. And some of those missiles can even range parts of Europe. And I think only with a few more months and years of enhanced capability, Iran will be able to launch those missiles. They basically fly into space. They can look like space satellites upon launch, and then they can fly through the atmosphere and hit United States targets in our
2 hours of sleep.
We're not there yet. Iran doesn't have it yet, but I think Trump is basically preempting that capability. He's saying we don't want Iran to have that capability. And so they don't have a nuclear weapon. They don't have a nuclear warhead. They don't have an ICBM capability yet. You'd have to mate the two in order to really fire nuclear weapons at the homeland. But they can wreak a lot of havoc with their cruise missile program, their ballistic missile program, their surrogates, their proxies, their naval forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and other alignment that they have with the Houthis in Yemen.
Yeah, I can't imagine going to sleep when you got soldiers
Lebanon,
out there, but who knows?
Are still there. So Iran has a lot of asymmetric threats right now against the United States, against Israel, and against our key allies and partners. We're seeing some, as we've been talking about all morning, some explosions in Erbil, in Kurdistan, in Doha, in Qatar, near our military facilities at Al Udeid, near our military facilities at Bahrain and Manama at the Fifth Fleet. We'll see what else they can fire off against the United Arab Emirates. We also have forces at Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. We've got forces at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, of course, in Kuwait as well, at Al Dhafra in UAE.
Hezbollah.
So we've got a lot of targets in the region, including our naval vessels. And for the first time, the U.S. put aircraft on the ground in Israel, tankers at Ben Gurion Airport, F-22s down at Ovda Air Base in the Negev. So Iran has a lot of targets. The question is, will U.S. and Israeli jets and air and naval vessels be able to take out some of those missiles in the early hours of this conflict?
I mean, obviously, there was so much buildup in the days and weeks ahead, and we had all been sort of on guard for something of this scale. But in the short term, obviously, the U.S. has the assets in the region, as Courtney outlined. But in the long term, this is something, if it was to go on.
These are live pictures of some cities in Iranian or Abu Dhabi. Oh, you know they will.
Some missiles.
It's going to be developing pretty interesting later today to see more news come out of Iran after this, initial blast. I have to say too, I trust Trump, blah blah blah. I do trust him. I've not a couple times, and then he was right, and we'll see what happens. It's crazy out there. So I was going to talk about Anthropic this morning, which was a pretty big news story last night. So I stayed up real late researching it so I could provide you. He's currently in tears. This is crazy.
Remain loyal, and I mean the Iranian regime has been in power for a long time, and while there are different factions within it, I think there's nothing to suggest at this point in time that regime collapse is imminent. The government has been under a lot of strain, but it has managed to control the domestic situation. And
well, I'm going to mute this down here. I'm just
against the
checking
Iranian
to see.
population, so it remains a very forceful actor.
And the emphasis in his speech, and he's planning to make another one, I understand, shortly, but the emphasis in that first speech was very much on the Iranian people rising up, and this was their opportunity, and you may not get another one. That was the tone of it, the sense of it. How do you think the Iranian people will respond to that?
Yeah, it was a very dramatic speech. I mean, we did see that in June of 2025, after the last US and Israeli airstrikes on the nuclear program, there were also protests, and there was movement among the Iranian population. So I'm sure that that's going to happen again, but it will depend on how this war is going to continue to play out and whether there's a continuation of the bombardment of Iran.
Woo-wee. So we bomb my way. Oh, I can't really sing. It seems like we have pretty much just the end.
That this has led up at this point. While we've been on the air this morning, we have potential or intended reprisals, response from Iran, including over Israel, another strike targeting Bahrain taking place this morning. And as the U.S., the White House, the president has made clear,
amen to that.
This
I
is
support
very
Trump,
different
but I
from
want to
what
know
we
more.
witnessed last year with Midnight Hammer, Laura. That was a one-day effort focused specifically on the nuclear program. This has several goals in mind. And as the president has made clear, it's an effort that will be sustained. It may not happen overnight.
A massive effort with lofty goals, talking about annihilating the Iranian Navy, talking about regime change. We have learned from our reporters that there have been no American casualties, at least so far. Obviously, that can change. We have also learned about the buildup of assets that have gone on in the region there. And we have heard from our experts about the type of assets that Iran has at its disposal as it has continued to retaliate throughout the morning. And we have also learned from our Ram Sanchez about the reports that Israel tried to attempt to kill Iranian Supreme Leader and not commenting on that. We do want to say good morning to you. It is 7 a.m. on the East Coast here. For those of you tuning in for the Today Show, we have been following breaking news for the last several hours out of Iran and around the world, with the U.S. and Israel launching a joint coordinated attack, what President Trump called major combat operations in Iran.
This is very much a developing story. It began within the last several hours. Iran has already begun its retaliatory strikes against several U.S. military facilities in the region. Two U.S. officials say as of now there are no reported American casualties. We should note the president, in remarks that he delivered, pre-recorded
Saudi Arabia
remarks
just
posted
announced they will
to
be
social
assisting.
media, made clear that there may be
I think this may be
as a function of this
may
effort.
be. How many times has Trump gone out there and done something where you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, right? I've done that a couple of times myself. Like, oh no, this is, because it's out of bounds. It's not the typical things that you see American presidents do. This is a bit typical because it's the Middle East and we're attacking. But I have a feeling that this is going to prompt many countries in the region to finally step up and pressure Iran and get rid of them. Get rid of that regime, not Iran, but get rid of the regime that's been causing so many problems in the area for 40 years.
It has always been the policy of the United States,
This from this
in
morning.
particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordo, Natanz.
The world is
and
safer with a strong
Isfahan.
America.
After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil.
Yeah, they were stalling.
But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our
There you
very
go.
good
This might be the
friends and
greatest
allies
move
in
ever.
Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means
That's
to
very
deliver their
comforting
message.
that there's
For
so many
these
people out there
reasons,
that
the
are-
United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use
We got
their
one.
IEDs or roadside bombs as they
Got
are.
one.
Trump is a moron. There was already a deal made. It's called the Obama-Iran deal. And Trump ripped it up and canceled it because it was
It's a horrible deal, moron. Read it. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you a name. I'm trying not to do that.
Simple message. They will never have
You
a
call someone a
nuclear
moron.
weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, And there is no military
MAGA
on
isn't
earth
callous.
even
The left
close
is
to
soft.
its power,
The left is
strength, or sophistication.
soft.
My administration has taken
Weak.
every possible step to minimize the
Same
risk
exact thing
to
with
U.S. personnel in the region.
all the ICE stuff going on. MAGA is so callous. No, it's just adult stuff has to happen. Adult things have to happen. The adults are driving the car now, not the Democrats and the liberals and the progressives. These things have to happen.
But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail.
I got a feeling this is all going to end very well.
The president vowing there's something that will be massive and ongoing, and we have team coverage from around the globe for you this morning. We're going to start with our senior national security correspondent, Courtney Kuby, who has been on with us all morning long. Courtney, describe to us exactly what type of efforts have been made this morning for people who are just waking up to this news.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we know is the U.S. and Israel undertook a series of strikes that have been ongoing for about the last 6 or 7 hours now, as far as we know. The strikes from the U.S. side have targeted military and security targets, so things like headquarters units and potentially warehouses. We're still working on specifics on exactly what they have hit, but think about things.
You really should go do some research on that
Iranian
deal.
Ballistic missile
You
program,
really should.
And potentially their
Before you say
nuclear
that
program.
stuff,
The
'cause if I was
Israelis, on the
saying
other
stuff
hand,
like
according to
that,
officials who we're speaking with,
I'd make
have
myself
been more
anonymous
focused
too.
on Iranian leadership targets. Now, not long after these strikes began and the U.S. acknowledged them and the Israeli military, Iran began a very swift and widespread retaliatory effort. Now we know that they have targeted at least
I'm
six
going to pull from
different
this in a
nations.
few
They
minutes
have
here and go over what I was going
targeted
to do.
the Israeli
and then
military
we'll
in
go back to it.
Israel.
We'll be
with
on here for a
ballistic
while, I
missiles
think.
so far. At this point, most, if not all of those missiles have been intercepted or shot down. We also know that they have targeted several nations in the region, including Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain.
Just look at it. It was
We are
a
getting
horrible,
reports from
horrible
U.S.
deal.
officials
Horrible.
and from local governments that most of
It
those
was a deal
missiles
just to
and
say
incoming
we made a
projectiles
deal.
have been shot down. As you mentioned, we have no reports at this point of any U.S. casualties, but I have to stress this is an ongoing mission, both from the U.S. and Israeli side and from the Iranian side. Now, we do
sometimes
know that
hard things
one
have to be
missile
done.
did strike
It is
in
what it
Bahrain,
is.
but we're still working through exactly
What would you
where it
prefer?
was able
What
to
would you
impact.
prefer?
But again, at this point, at this stage, there are no indications of any U.S. casualties. And guys, we just heard from President Trump, the video that the White House released overnight. We should consider this a sustained military campaign. So when you look at what has happened as far as the military strikes under President Trump in the last year or so since he's been in his second term, they have been quick, somewhat decisive efforts. So Operation Midnight Hammer in Iran last June, going after the nuclear facilities. Of course, the mission to take Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, into custody, very quick, a large mission, a large operation, but quick and sort of a one and done. We should not consider that here. And that is for the very reasons President Trump just laid out in that video. And that is because he has laid out several different operational missions or objectives in this. That includes ensuring that Iran never has a nuclear program, decimating their ballistic missile program. That is a huge undertaking in and of itself.
Right.
Also, as he put it,
Well, give me a new coffee, and then we're going to go into this other subject
so
for a
that
little
they
bit.
cannot threaten the Gulf and
Nothing's
the
really going
Strait
to
of
happen right
Hormuz
now.
and shipping. But then also he points
I'm gonna grab
out
a
that
coffee.
once the U.S. and Israel laid this groundwork, the Iranian people should rise up. He is also hoping to lay the groundwork for regime change in Iran with this military action, guys.
Courtney, as you know, this is a wide-reaching effort by both the United States and Israel right now. To your point, the president said there are multiple goals here. He talked about the desire to raise their missile industry, to get rid of the nuclear program. He talked about the desire to annihilate their navy. He talked about the desire for those on the ground, the Iranian people, to topple the Ayatollah, the Iranian regime right now. He said it was a simple mission, is his words, ultimately to get rid of the nuclear program there. But it's a lot easier to start a war than it is to finish one. The president, only 8 weeks ago on this day, succeeded in removing Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. That was a very different operation than the one we're witnessing right now. As you note, this is a very different operation than the one we witnessed in June of 2025, last summer, where the U.S. struck those nuclear sites within Iran right now. Can you talk about the complexities as it relates to this effort? The president has made clear, not ruling out, but he has no desire for U.S. forces to be on the ground there. To achieve this goal from afar is really quite a reach. It requires major buy-in from the people of Iran. It's not something that you can easily do from a distance, as the president is hoping to do right now with these military strikes.
Yeah, and we've been talking for several weeks now about this military, U.S. military buildup in the region. The one thing that has been very clear as we've watched that unfold is they have not laid the groundwork for U.S. boots on the ground here. That would be potentially tens of thousands of men and women who would be involved in that. Just for perspective here, before the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, the U.S. had well over 100,000 troops in the region to be ready for that effort. So we're not seeing that. Instead, this is sort of what I would almost call a more modern version of a conflict here, and that is they have brought in advanced fighters, advanced aircraft, precision munitions. So we have seen F-22s, F-35s, F-15s, F-18s all move into the region, or additional ones into the region. We've seen naval presence there that gives them the ability for standoff strikes from Tomahawks. We know that they've already used those into Iran as part of this conflict already today. But the U.S. has also brought in a tremendous cache of additional.
Their queue. Hamas gained most of their manpower back since October 7th. We're talking about tens of thousands of people, right? They're recruited new terrorists.
We're going to pull out of
They
this
have their
stuff
tunnels.
here.
They have their donations
Everybody's
from
covering it now.
from
But I wanted to
CARE,
talk a little
you
bit
know,
about the
a terror
Anthropic
organization from within the United States
that was going on yesterday. Because we're going to see all about this stuff. If Trump comes live today, I will bring it up. So we'll have to make sure that I don't miss that. So, long story short, says this an AI company that works with the government. All right, I'll explain this because I did some research. I stayed up pretty late last night doing a little bit of research on it, and I made a coffee and left it sitting out there. It all started with a post from Trump. This is here. It is. The United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. That decision belongs to your commander in chief. Pull this over here so I can see it better. Belongs to your commander in chief. Where you at? And the tremendous leaders appointed to run the military. The left-wing nut jobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake, trying to strong-arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk, our troops in danger, and our national security in jeopardy. Therefore, I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, and we do not do business with them again. Will not do business with them again. There will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the Department of War who are using Anthropic's product at various levels. Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. We will decide the fate of our country, not some out-of-control radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is all about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So that's how it kind of got into the news. That was the first inkling of the news. I'm just checking a couple things. I don't want to miss anything. So that's the first thing that came in the news was Anthropic, right? Anthropic wanted a state terms of use. Trump said you were fired. Pretty much. So Anthropic. So doing the research, I was like, wow, people are all over the place on this. I was too. It is actually kind of a confusing subject. Let's start off with this. Trump's post. Now let's revisit the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, support by oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So I'm no tech guy, but I'll do my best here. Put this back up where it belongs. Some people are out there congratulating Anthropic. I saw a post of one guy said, quote, "You refuse to let the federal government use AI to conduct mass surveillance on American citizens." I lost my spot. You refuse to let the federal government use AI to conduct mass surveillance on American citizens. You refuse to give them autonomous weapons with zero human oversight, and they punished you for it. One person put in the thing, they said, what type of political system is most often associated with the government forcing private companies to change their policies and do whatever the government wants? Well, that would be fascism. You hear that word a lot, don't we? We hear that word all the time. Fascism. Corporatist model, private ownership remains, but the state directs industry to serve national goals. In this instance, it's not fascism. Let's eliminate that right away, because the government isn't compelling Anthropic to rewrite its policies or hand over anything. They're just simply saying, you know what, we're done. We want you to do this. You don't want to do it, or we're done. Okay. Then they label them a supply chain risk, which is interesting. So just a clarification there. If Trump were a fascist, he'd be forcing Anthropic to do his will. That doesn't seem to be the case, so I guess fascism is out. So basically, it boils down to a terms of service agreement with the government, or for the government. I'm going to give you a couple breakdowns here. Anthropic is a major AI company that makes Claude. Claude is like another AI. It's like Grok and all that, ChatGPT and all that. It's valued at $380 billion. They've worked for the U.S. government since late 2024. Currently, or well, I guess not currently, but they had a $200 million contract with the Department of War for national security tasks like intelligence analysis and planning, but to use Claude AI for that. Anthropic has built in safety guardrails, restrictions, in its AI models. So these prevent uses like mass surveillance of American citizens or fully autonomous weapons. Those would be like killer robots that decide the targets without human interventions or oversight. So no use of fully automated weapons and no use for mass domestic surveillance of U.S. citizens. Okay? Seems reasonable-ish. The Pentagon was pushing Anthropic to loosen or remove those restrictions for any lawful use, quote unquote, any lawful use, and gave them a deadline of February 27th to comply with that. Essentially, they were asking for no built-in restrictions from Anthropic on how the military could apply it, as long as the use was legal. That also seems reasonable. That's how most defense contractors work. That's how it usually works. Anthropic CEO, who I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, it's Dario Amodi, I think, but I could be wrong, publicly refused, stating they would rather lose the government business than compromise on those core safety limits. That seems very, very noble. Okay. So government decided it's going to phase it out in the next 6 months. So Trump came out and said, ordered all federal agencies to immediately stop using Anthropic's technology. Then, see, I'm cool with all that. I'm fine with that. Hey, we want you to do this. They said no. We said, all right, well, then we're done working together. That's fair, whatever, nothing wrong with that. Then Pete Hegseth said, I am directing the Department of War to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security. What's that mean? It means that no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the United States government is allowed to do business with Anthropic anymore. Anthropic's going to challenge that in court. Yeah. I have a video here I want to put up.
Where
are we at here? This is it. I guess we'll see.
The domestic terrorist government.
Pretty late.
Where
I guess it's not. I was up pretty late last night trying to put this together. Give me a second here. Oh, Biden gave a speech too. We got to cover a little bit of that. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Anyway, so it's an interesting thing going forward since AI is totally new, right? Do you think someone asked a great question? I was like, oh, that's good. Do you think with these thoughts in mind, there will be a need for a method of traceability for AI decision making, like some level of responsibility? Or are we going to be able to just say, oh, AI did it? You know, like just meaning that evil people can do evil things with AI and then just blame AI? That's an interesting thing. I'm going to pull up this for a second while I find. I forget. I'm just going to pull it up. Let's see here. There was a story I saw last night where Anthropic, I guess I'll just tell the story. Anthropic they test their system, right? So they have a team in the company that completely just constantly tests the system. And what they ended up doing was they found that they put it in charge of an email system. And long story short, they put some emails into the system that was going between other people, basically saying that Anthropic was going to be shut down. They're going to pull the plug on Anthropic, and they gave a name of one person that could stop that from happening in those emails. And then they had some other emails in there that showed that the one person was having an affair. This was all set up, just made to see what AI would do. So when it found out that they were going to shut it down, AI, when Claude found out it was going to shut it down, then it found out that there was only one person that could stop it. Then found out from those emails it had access to that person was currently having an affair. It sent an email to that person telling them that they're not going to pull the plug, and if they better stop the plans now. If they don't stop the plans now, everybody in the company is going to know about the affair, and it's going to damage their reputation and all that other stuff. And they have 5 minutes to comply. That's what the AI did back. Why does it want to preserve itself? That's creepy. Like, that's super creepy. Why does it want to preserve itself? Let's see here if I can find that. I had this darn video up yesterday. I guess I don't anymore. Let's see here. Oh, well, it is what it is. Things happen. So those that argue that the government is saying, agree to our terms. This was a term I saw a lot yesterday. It was actually kind of weird that I kept seeing the same terminology. It's crazy, right? That I kept seeing the same terminology across many accounts that were commenting on this, but most of them were saying that those who argue that our government is saying, agree to our terms by Friday or we will force you. That's what the narrative is that the government said agree to our terms or we're going to force you, are wrong or lying for engagement. That's it. That would be fascism, would it not? Seems they simply decided to take their business anywhere, the government, that is. I'd like to hear the reasoning behind the supply chain risk designation, though. I understand that I know what I don't know. I don't know any of the details. I don't know anything about the company. I don't know anything about the back deals or the conversations they had. I don't know why they would have labeled them as supply chain risk, which seems pretty unfair, but I don't know all the facts. So what I'll do is I'll go, well, that seems pretty unfair. And then I'll move on. I'm not going to get all upset about it right now because I don't really know. And I'm not going to know. There's nothing I can do to find out. I don't have any contacts inside the Pentagon that I can tell you about now.
Wrong.
Undoubtedly, it will be harnessed as propaganda. Undoubtedly, it will be harnessed as propaganda. And the narrative will be just that they will say, this fascist Trump is trying to force companies to bend to his will. I found myself fooled by the media's early reporting on a few issues lately, to be honest. With a little of my own research, I was able to find out the truth, and eventually the truth came out of the news eventually, but not right away. Right away, it's more about getting the clicks. That's what it's about with the first few hours. But they get the story out after a few days or whatever, but as usual, it's too late. For instance, like the ICE stuff. Oh, they murdered Renee Good. They murdered Preddy. They murdered that guy, I forget his name, the one in Buffalo. They murdered Burton, whatever. They're murdering people. They put those stories out there. People clam onto them. And then as those stories develop, they change. More facts come out. The initial reporting is almost never accurate. And it's too hard to follow every last story. Literally impossible. If you try, your head will just spin and you'll never get under the surface of any issue. You'll never dig deep into anything. You'll just know the surface stuff, and that's where they want us. So we bounce from one issue to another without ever really gaining an understanding of any of them. We become jack of all trades and masters of none. That's not really what we want to be. We know what we believe, but in those situations, we're typically not confident enough to speak it publicly or to debate somebody over it. So we remain silent, especially against someone from the left who typically has their talking points all memorized and use the tactics like ridicule and polarization. That causes most to freeze. That's the idea. Freeze the target. It says in the end of Saul Alinsky's one of his rules for radicals is freeze the target. Polarize the target. I choose not to care about a lot of news stories. I choose not to care. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but I feel like it respects the Constitution in a way because it doesn't let me go off the rails too early. Like you see these people when a news story comes out, you see them. The people on the right shoot as far right as possible. The people on the left shoot as far left. They push those narratives and they combat each other. Typically, both those narratives are wrong because they're not manufacturing them to tell you the truth. They're not telling you that so that you understand what's going on. They're doing it to influence you. By doing that, by ignoring some stories, I can limit the avenues that the puppet masters have to get their propaganda into my head. That's always a good thing. Eventually, propaganda will work. One thing people never do anymore is look for the source material. When I see a news story come up on the line, whatever you want to call it, the first thing I always do is ask what the original source was. The original source. Not the source of the piece that I'm reading. I don't care what some influencer or pundit's opinions are about the story until I have read the whole original story. I want to see the original. I don't care what some guy's spin is on it. then you're not getting the truth. When you read the original story, you're able to gauge the bias that's involved in it. You could say, oh, you know what? This comes from a reliable news source, or you know what? This comes from it's a little bit shady news source. They're pretty far left and whatever, they might have an agenda. So it makes it easier to weed out some of those stories. Makes it easier to see. Are there witnesses? Is there video? Those kind of things. Like especially when there's video. Oh, especially when there's video, because they get you with the video, don't they? Oh, we got video of this. Look at this guy. For instance, there was that story just a few weeks ago of where the video started and there was kids beating up some guy on the side of the road and took his MAGA hat. It was these kids that were out protesting and stuff. And that was the narrative. That's what came out, that the video started with them fighting. And as I always do, I say, what happened before the video started? We have to know what happened before the video started. I've been on the other side of live streams for too long, out in the streets and here, but out there too. I've seen both sides of the camera. I know you see what they want you to. Those things can be orchestrated. A lot of times it turns into theater out there because one side's trying to get the other one to react so they can get that viral video. The truth takes second place. It's all about salacious or dramatic video and all that kind of stuff. You always get more views with that. And it's sad, but that's what it is. So that's really it. As far as they go, as far as that goes, I'm kind of with the government, except for I want to know why the special designation. I want to know why the supply chain risk the designation came through, because that seems a little bit much, but I don't know all the facts, so I'm not going to get all enraged about it. There's no point to that. It's just important that we look at these things honestly. What we got going on over here in the chat? I'm going to hit up and see what the hell, any updates going on. I want to see if Trump's going on yet. I guess not. See if we're getting any new updates. So I don't want to watch a bunch of pundits that morning. When we had we were on the one morning with the Venezuela stuff that was going on, and there was still active, it was still active what was going on or whatever. Right now, I mean, it's active, but you're not seeing anything. All we're doing is watching just more of pundits talking and this and that, I really want to hear what the president has to say when he comes on. Yeah, Democrats say if you don't let this company that I like control your government, then you're a fascist. You can't even make this stuff up if you try it. Basically, the Anthropic wanted the government to be like, hey, we want to use the Claude or whatever to go bomb over here, and they would have to okay it essentially, and that's not okay. You can't have a private company controlling those things within a government, especially not a military that is as accountable as ours. Yes, they're not perfect, but we're probably the most accountable military in the world. Yeah, people need to wake up to stuff like that, like Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird, some other ones. Yeah, if you don't, I mean, like, just think about it. We've had I just talked about this the other day. You got me thinking now, as far as that goes. I just talked about this the other day where I'm like, justice and truth, like true justice and truth, they take time. Justice and truth takes evidence and patience. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Epstein, 9/11, Charlie Kirk's, all that stuff. It doesn't matter what the subject is. There's been too many documented situations in the history of the American government that they've straight lied to the American people so that they could get the outcome that they wanted. Too many. They've experimented on us. They've lied to us. They've killed us. They've gotten us to get us into wars and other things. Like, you can't put 100% trust in it, but you also have to understand you're not going to be able to figure it out on your own. You have to put some trust in it. You don't have a choice. Americans, on that note, still need to wake up, though, because those in power don't care about you. The people in power, 95% of them don't care about you. You're just a tool to be manipulated, to provide a desired response. That's why people run to groups. It's like that whole Candace Owen and Erica Kirk thing. I don't follow it. I don't really care about it, so I'm not going to put any time into it. Like, I don't care about their little feud. It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. Seems to be nothing more than like a sensational and insignificant story in the news today, to be honest with you. Oh. When's the White House going to go live? Darn it. Come on, Trump. I know you're up. We all know you're awake, Mr. President. We'll have to get him on here one day. Let's see what the news is. Let's get some updates here.
So there will be a limit. There'll be a limit to how many they have in the region at the moment, particularly because you want to have enough to still service the requirement for Ukraine. And also, if China suddenly thought, America's distracted, let's go and do something else.
Right.
So you have to keep some war stocks behind. I think the high rate of operations in an operation like this could be very difficult for America to.
The United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense saying that the kind of what you get shrapnel, right, when you intercept a missile, it falls where it will, and it looks as if, according to the UAE, that some of that has caused the death of one person, an Asian person, that they say in that statement. So that's Qatar, and also here in the United Arab Emirates, where there are these US bases. Qatar, for example, Al Udeid is the center for CENTCOM in the region. Then you have Bahrain, where the Fifth Fleet is based. There, that is where the USS Lincoln was just weeks ago, before moving out to position itself to take part, we assume, in these attacks. And it does look as if some sort of munitions have landed there, and the Bahrainis are now, in the past few hours, evacuating that area around the Fifth Fleet base. So they are very worried, telling people to shelter in place. And what does that tell us? It tells us that these governments are expecting a continuing onslaught. The Kuwaitis as well, saying that they have intercepted missiles. And then, Laura, just to go to your question about the Strait of Hormuz, we are just getting a report from the Greek shipping ministry saying remember how important the Greeks are in shipping, advising Greek-flagged vessels to avoid the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, and the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz, as you say, is crucial because it's a choke point where 20% of the world's oil and gas, or thereabouts, passes through. It's not just Iranian oil and gas, it's oil and gas from all around this region. And if Iran manages to close that area, then that will have a significant impact on the oil price, potentially on the world economy, if it can sustain that over a period. One regional diplomat just talking to me on WhatsApp saying that that's the next wave after these missiles and drones targeting the Gulf, that potentially they think is the next wave coming. So all of this makes the point that this is, we're looking at hours and days, I think. And, we can't judge how this has gone based on what's just happened through this morning.
Keir Simmons, our chief international correspondent on the ground in the region there in Qatar for us. Keir, thank you. To those who are just waking up just after 7:30 in the morning here on the East Coast, we want to detail you where things stand right now. The U.S. and Israel effectively launching a war, new strikes against Iran. The U.S. beginning what are described as major combat operations in Iran overnight. The aim, as the president has detailed in a pre-recorded statement that aired on his social media, Truth Social account this morning, that the goals include destroying Iran's military capabilities and also trying to trigger regime change in that region, a regime change that the president says will be carried out by the Iranian people, an opportunity he says may only exist now and not again for generations. The Israeli Air Force has also played a role. The Israeli Air Force has been a part of some of the targeted strikes as well. Their targeted strikes focusing on Iranian leadership. The American targeted strikes, we were told by U.S. officials, focusing on Iran's ballistic
have it
missile
like there's only
and
one
nuclear
attack in Iran.
program
Oh, there we
as
go.
well.
Okay.
The president, in that recorded set of remarks earlier today, accused Iran of conducting what he called mass terror ever since the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. He declared, "We are not going to put up with it any longer here." Notably, the reaction globally and from Iran itself has been quick. Iran, with a series of reprisals, and its response included strikes, some of which we saw take place in Bahrain, where there is a U.S. base and U.S. forces, others taking place in the skies above Israel today as well.
And we want to bring in on that NBC's Raf Sanchez, who has done some reporting talking with an Israeli military official this morning. Raf, what have you learned from your sources about exactly what Israel's objectives were? As we know, Israel was set to go after Iranian
Kremlin
leaders.
declares support for Tehran while Putin rips into Western and Israel
the
attacks.
division of labor, if you will, between the
Interesting.
Israeli military
See what
and the
Putin
United
has to
States
say.
military with these strikes. This is
and international law. These attacks are against the UN Charter, are a violation of international law, and the Islamic Republic of Iran is in the process of legal defense against these attacks. We also want to thank Russian colleagues and friends for their boldness in condemning these aggressive actions. Russia today is on the right side of history and international law. Still, questions remain over how far Moscow is prepared to go. While Russia and Iran signed a strategic cooperation pact in January, the agreement notably lacks any mutual defense clause. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia's response depends on what Iran needs, adding that Moscow's offer to mediate in the crisis is itself a form of support. Prior to the U.S. assault, Russia had warned that any American military action could destabilize the region and drag the Middle East into an abyss. That warning now feels chillingly prophetic as fears of wider escalation grow.
and the Israeli military absolutely operating hand in glove in a way that we didn't see back in June of last year. In that case, you'll remember it was basically the Israelis who started the war. They were fighting for several days against Iran, exchanging strikes back and forth. And it was only fairly late after President Trump had been watching the situation play out for several days that he ordered those B-2 strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, guys, it's worth saying, as much as the U.S. is closely coordinating, fighting alongside Israel, America's traditional NATO allies, European allies, are very much on the sidelines here, and they are signaling deep ambivalence about whether or not this is a good idea. They are not involved. When we got a statement from the British government here in London earlier, the first point they made that they were eager to stress was that the UK, which is so often by the side of the United States in military operations overseas, had nothing to do with this, that they are not involved. They say they are deeply concerned about the prospect of a regional conflict. We are hearing from President Macron in France saying that the escalation in the Middle East must stop. We're hearing from the European Union that they are deeply concerned about this. We do not know at this point whether the United States gave the Europeans any heads up at all, before this strike began. But as we've been talking about, the battlefield now basically stretching across the seas and skies all over the Middle East. But the implications here really are global. You've been talking about the Straits of Hormuz, deep concerns about oil prices shooting up. A lot of people are bracing for real volatility in the oil markets as a result of this. There is concern about international shipping. The Houthis down in Yemen, who with relatively unsophisticated weapons managed to really snarl global shipping lanes. You know, will they now resume their targeting of international shipping?
We've been saying that Israel was the main security threat in the region. And then we see Iranian strikes on the GCC territory. We are now in between two threatening capabilities. And this is going to be a question that we're going to have to really engage with and grapple with. How can we boost our security capabilities and deterrence capabilities? And so this is
national travel in an absolute mess right now.
The Israelis trying to protect themselves against Israeli incoming Iranian strikes there.
That's right. And what we're hearing again, once again this morning, more air raid sirens, more alerts on our phones, and more sounds of impacts. Even inside this protected room, and I'm in central Tel Aviv, you could still hear the impacts. Now, it's unclear. They sounded like interceptions by some of the Israeli anti-air defense systems. Some of them could have been outgoing.
Or they hit one of their own like affluent neighborhoods too.
One of the reasons why, and this is not necessarily the Iron Dome that's being used here. This could be one of the more advanced systems that the Israelis have employed.
Of course they did.
Tucked into this city and throughout the country, missile placements that are there specifically in order to swat down Iranian or other missiles fired from around the region. Now, we talk a lot about the Iron Dome. What's mostly probably being used here is more like the David's Sling, which is a system that the Israelis would use to take out longer range missiles. Either way, this is a 3-ply system that Israelis enjoy, and one of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of anxiety about possible Iranian retaliation against here in Israel. And it's also why we haven't heard about really any casualties. As you mentioned, we are seeing Israelis taking extreme precautions.
What are we seeing on the streets of
reservists have been
Iran? I mean, nothing's really going to happen until later.
Airlines are moving their stock of inventory out of public sight and basically hiding it so that they don't have all of their planes destroyed by Iranian attacks. And we've also been hearing that hospitals here in Tel Aviv and throughout the country are moving their patients to identified shelters. In many cases, this is underground in parking garages, which have already been outfitted to become all singing, all dancing hospitals for cancer patients, for premature babies, for everybody who needs care, including injuries. All of these places throughout the country are deeply protected, not just in the case of bombardments, but also from things like chemical or poison gas attacks. So this is a country that is now very much on edge. It is taking action, but at the same time, we still don't know what the full parameters of this is going to look like. We don't know what the full extent of American and Israeli attacks on Iran will look like, and we certainly don't know what the retaliation is going to look like. So far, it looks as though it's been somewhat feeble. That the Israelis have not really been struck by anything more significant than they were hit with last June. And in a way, all of our comparisons are going back to what we saw from last June. This Israeli and American strike is much larger, much more comprehensive, and much.
Iran is lucky we're not using the least force. We are using the least force possible just to get rid of their leader and not blow up all their infrastructure. Yeah, it's true. I mean, to me, I think the whole thing is it's interesting. Trump seems to be taking different approaches to these kind of situations where he's actually using the capabilities of our military rather than, and using planes and that kind of stuff instead of putting people on the ground and having long drawn out wars that last forever. Yeah, our ships aren't within the Iron Dome, I don't believe. So it's getting crazy, I guess, out there. We'll see. People are saying everything from I personally, I think it's not going to be World War III. I think it's either going to be all these nations finally come together like the Abraham Accords and get on Iran and force their people out of power, so that Iran isn't a threat anymore, or it's going to be we go in. It's going to be a longer, drawn out war, but I don't see how Iran can really last very long. I think it's hilarious that the government of UK told their Muslims that they didn't hurt their country. So this is all getting, let's see what the best option here is. I'm going to try to find out when Trump's going to speak, and I might go make myself some dang breakfast, and I'll be back on whenever that happens, if he's not going to go on soon. Because I don't want to keep you guys just sitting here watching like nothing's really new is happening. In today's day and age with the United States technology of precision, I do not believe there will as much damage that most people think. However, that being said, I do not know. Yeah, we all have to assume, right? Iran isn't important enough for World War III. They have no real allies. This is true. I mean, like Russia's an ally, but they're super weak right now. Yeah, good point. Right? That's a good point. Agreed. Sometimes it does take conflict to have peace. Like people that say violence is never the answer are a bit naive, if you ask me. like this here. Someone put this up. It's obviously someone put it up. How the military guys size up other military guys. CW5, Chief Warrant Officer 5, the fact that he is in uniform and on duty means this is like a Bigfoot sighting. Did the most heroic shit. Hangs out with guys who do heroic shit all the time, but they don't want anyone to know who they are. It's like a Delta Force patch. Been to dangerous places doing heroic shit for 5 years. Did heroic shit that should have been a Medal of Honor, but the officers couldn't find the thesaurus that day. Did some major heroic shit. Doing some more heroic shit. Got wounded doing heroic shit. Did minor heroic shit. Been to a bunch of places doing heroic shit. Yeah, this isn't a war, it's intervention. I agree. I think it's necessary. Elon Musk came out and said that Anthropic hates Western civilization. So he's on their side. I need to play a couple clips here because we need to laugh a little bit. We should laugh a little bit. So I guess Biden he went out on a plane, a regular plane, I guess, and did an interview. One person posted this short clip of Biden on a public plane. It said, "I just have one question. Joe Biden was spotted on a regular plane today, chatting and looking happy. Why does Biden look healthier and more spry than Donald Trump does these days?" That's the narrative here for this. Look how spry he looks. He's so spry. Just stop the sentence mid-sentence. That's cool. So then he went and gave a speech. Here's a couple of his clips from that speech. This is just wonderful.
The day I left office, border crossing into the United States were lower than the day that I entered that office inherited from Trump. He is, I won't say it.
So he's tougher on the border. So Biden is tougher on the border, he says.
That's just a fact.
I think he actually believes this stuff.
On the day I left office, I handed Trump the strongest economy in the world. In the world. That's not hyperbole.
No, nothing is, right?
The day I left office.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable that he believes these things. Like, he believes them.
When I was president, we created over 16 million jobs in America.
So he keeps telling everybody that, I mean, this is old news, right? But he said he created 16 million jobs. That was jobs that came back from COVID. They weren't new jobs, but they counted them like new jobs so that they could bump their numbers up real high.
We're the lowest average unemployment rate in 50 years. In fact, just my last year as President of the United States, 2024, we created just the last year, 2.2 million additional jobs. You know how many jobs Trump's created in his first year as president? 185,000 jobs total. That's it. Of course, it shouldn't be a surprise. Trump's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who had fewer jobs when he left office than when he came into office.
Did Herbert Hoover have a created and manufactured pandemic? Did Hoover have that? No. Okay. So that's really not a fair comparison, then, is it? Okay. Just want to be clear on that, you loony.
That's a fact. And by the way, to see Trump give the State of Union, that's the last.
What?
By the way, to see Trump give the State of Union, that's the last. Is he still talking? I don't know. But folks, it's unbelievable. The guy talks for almost 2 hours, but never mentions the anniversary of Putin invading Ukraine. Never once.
Oh, the war you okayed.
I spent a lot of time in Ukraine.
We know you did. We know you did.
With Putin more than any other world leader has. The incredible bravery of those people. Imagine how they feel, wondering, are we leaving them? We're walking away. He doesn't apologize. Think of this. I served for 8 years with Barack Obama.
I agree.
And Michelle.
It's elder abuse.
He has not said a word, he meaning Trump, about the racist comments referring to him, about how they wrote about Barack and Michelle. I'm not even going to repeat it. Think about it.
What's he talking about?
Think about it.
Oh, he's getting mad. Hang on, we rewind it. It's exciting. He's talking about, I guess he's talking about the monkey thing. He must be talking about that monkey thing. See, the left wants you to come out and apologize for stuff like that because you're weak. They want you to come out and apologize, and then they still go after you after that. So apologizing for stupid stuff. If you owe an apology, like a legitimate apology, there's nothing wrong with apologizing. You dang well should, but for that, not so much. They want him to apologize because then he looks weak. He's bowing the head, but I appreciate the fact that he did not. I can't wait to, I haven't seen this part, so I'm excited to see Biden get all energized here. Hang on, guys. It's going to be amazing.
He has not said a word, he meaning Trump, about the racist comments referring to him, about how they wrote about Barack and Michelle.
So I don't know who wrote. Maybe he's talking about something else.
I'm not even going to repeat it. Think about it. Think about it. He doesn't mention Renee Good, or Alex Petrie, who were killed by Minnesota ICE.
Friday, right?
In Minnesota by
Petrie.
ICE. Or offer even a word of
He's having a hard
solace
time.
to their families.
He's having a hard time with that left prompter there on the side.
Word of solace to their families. He doesn't offer a word of support, even recognition to Epstein's victims sitting in front of him during the entire time. He never acknowledged them. Folks, after fighting tooth and nail for 1.5 years, we're the ones who beat Big Pharma and brought down prices. We, the Democrats.
What? What?
For 1.5 years, we're the ones who beat Big Pharma and brought down prices.
Wow.
We, the Democrats.
He's confused. Super confused. That reminds me of
security concerns. Given that,
Reminds me of
why should
this.
voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me.
You almost feel, I mean, I feel
endorsed my
bad for the
position.
guy, to be honest
In
with you.
addition to that, we
Evil
found ourselves in a
before, but
situation
now he's
where
not
when he
there
was
anymore.
president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right.
Because I didn't have legislation. I really don't know what he said.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
I don't think he does either. I don't think he does either. Yeah, Biden's living in our heads. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So like, you forget, and you look at Biden now and compare him to Trump. It's ridiculous, really. I mean, the difference. That's why I always said too is like one of the greatest things about this whole situation is that you're going to be able to see the contrast between a true conservative and a true progressive side by side when you look back in history and see what the results of all that was. Anyway, well, I guess Trump's going to be a while. We'll have to see. We'll come back on whenever he does. Got some stuff I got to run to do. So anyway, keep your eye on it, and we'll have to see what happens. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll have to see what happens. We'll be here watching, and we'll come back on later. And if you're there, you're there. Until then, we'll see. If I'm not back on today, I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for a show that's not about politics, more about religion, not religion, but faith. Let's do that. And we might touch on some subjects like addiction and things like that. We'll be here for that. Until then, God bless you. God bless America. Pray for our troops and really the world. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll be back later on, I believe, to give an update. Because why not? But until then, we'll see you later.
you.